Hello and welcome to yet another preview show for the Qatar World Cup here on Celtic Down Under. We are covering a review of every team going to the World Cup, both myself and Liam, as you'll probably have seen on videos before. Today it's the turn of England as we enter Group B. Liam, I don't know about you, but I've been looking forward to this one in particular.
Yeah, and considering that among the many shirts I own, I don't own an England shirt. I thought I'd go for a country that have about as much chance of winning the World Cup as they do. So I'm
Ouch.
wearing an East Germany jersey.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we will get into the positives of England's squad, which is undoubtedly a talented squad, and we'll look at the potential that they have to maybe do something at this World Cup, given their pretty decent performances. You have to say at the last two major
Hmm.
tournaments that they've attended.
Yeah.
But before we do that, um, I guess the one thing I wanted to talk about first of all was just uh, I'm needing you to tell me that I'm just being childish here and I'm just being utterly biased, but I have to admit I struggle, not just because I'm Scottish, but I struggle with wanting England to do well in any way, shape, or form at these situations. Not necessarily because of the teams, but because of the coverage surrounding them. Is that fair or unfair? What do you think of
No,
that?
that's pretty much my take on it. When I look at England, I think I like a lot of those players. I like Gareth Southgate as a manager and as a man. He seems like a very decent, humble human being. Does a lot of good work for charity and whatever. Um, you know, England are not necessarily a difficult team to watch. They can play good football, and they do play good football sometimes. But like you say, it's the media, it's a certain subsection of the fans who their only way of being English is to be anti everybody else, which is kind of pathetic, really. And being from a journalistic background, the thing that ticks me off the most is the media.
Mm.
Um, Particularly whenever England play a big game at the World Cup against anybody, whether it's Argentina, Germany, Holland, whatever, right? It can't just be a game of football. There
Mhm.
has to be some sort of jingoistic reason as to why, oh, everybody in England should hate this country, and here's why. And it's like, guys, just play football, you know?
Yeah.
Because what I think is quite funny, there's a kind of scale of levels here, right? We in Scotland have a bee in our bonnet about playing England because that's our enemy. That's the ones we want to get one over on, right? England don't care about us, right? It's like swatting a fly to them, right? They care about playing Germany. But in turn, Germany do not care about them because they want to beat Holland. That's their rival, you know, and that annoys the English the same way that their disdain for us annoys us, you know.
I have to admit that's where a lot of the frustration comes from for me as well. Is England's idea of their own importance on the world stage is very overinflated when you consider, the number of times that Holland have got to the latter stages of tournaments, even if they haven't won it. The
Yeah,
frequency with which Germany are at the very least semi-finalists in these tournaments, at a frequency that very few teams can match, and yet
hmm.
England have the audacity to say, "Yeah, they're our rivals." In order to
Yeah,
be rivals, there has to be something that you are both bringing to the table. And for me, on an international stage, they're a lot of bluster, but they don't have nearly the amount of pedigree that a Germany do, that a Holland do, or even in the last, say, 30 years, a France do for certain. I mean, France have won two World Cups in the last 30 years, and what have England done?
yeah. But the thing is that the frustrating thing from an English point of view is that they have at different times in the last 30 years had the players where they could and probably should have won something.
Hmm.
You know, you think like guys like Alan Shearer, Gary Lineker, um, Gaza, you know,
Yeah.
Chris Waddle, um, great goalkeepers as well, like Peter Shilton and David Seaman. And you think, how did they never win a major tournament when they had this pool of amazing players for
Hmm.
like, about 25, 30 years? And the current England team, funnily enough, has actually gone the other way. I don't think there's any, apart from perhaps Harry Kane, there's no really outstanding talent in that squad. And even Kane is nowhere near the same level as like a Gary Lineker or an Alan Shearer when they're playing at his peak, right? But
I will disagree slightly with you there, and I will say the only other talent that I would put in that bracket with some of those players you've mentioned, even though it's maybe a bit early, is Jude Bellingham. I think he is a genuinely exciting young talent, but maybe at 19 years old, it is still a little bit too early in his trajectory to talk about him in those circles.
I'll hold judgment on that because I remember very similar discussions around Raheem Sterling a few years ago, and he's not bad, but he's not he's not top echelon, which people are saying Bellingham could be, and it's like, let's just wait and see, guys. Wait and see.
Yeah. To try and be a bit more positive about England, I mean, if it wasn't England we were talking about here, and it was any other nation, and we were saying they reached the semi-finals at the last World Cup, they reached the final at their continental tournament, and did so, with relative ease in comparison to some other teams have found it to get to these situations. If that was another team, I would probably be putting my money on them being a favourite to win. Are England a favourite to win this tournament? What, if anything, excuses them from being one given the track record they've had at the last couple of tournaments?
Right. They are now. Their record in the previous two tournaments has been outstanding. Right. You can make arguments that they got an easy draw, they avoided the big teams. No. No bad team gets to the semi-final of a World Cup. That's just right. Let's just shoot that one down right away. The Euros, again, they benefited from a lot of the bigger teams knocking each other out.
Yeah.
Like they got to the final without having to play France, Spain, or Belgium, who were probably the best three teams at the tournament before the tournament started. But they still beat a very good German team.
Mm-hmm.
They beat an excellent Denmark team who were, after the whole Christian Eriksen thing, were pretty much everybody's second team at that tournament.
Yeah.
They did well, and you have to acknowledge that they did well. But I think that was their peak. I think, unfortunately for this generation of England players, that's as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they were still beaten in the final. All right, it was on penalties, but they were beaten by an ageing Italian side who haven't even qualified for this World Cup.
Yeah.
So that you have to put it in that perspective. Well, yes, they got to a semi-final, but the team that beat them in the final haven't even qualified. So what does that say?
Listen, I could have a whole conversation about that Italian side. It's maybe the best side I can remember who then didn't qualify for the subsequent tournament. I mean, as much as they are an aging, or they were an aging side, they absolutely took Euro 2020 by storm. And when I realised doing my research, I have to say, I'm one of these people that doesn't really pay attention to the qualifiers for a tournament until it's upon you. And when I really came to the realisation that Italy weren't going to be there, I really was shocked. But that's a conversation for another day. Looking at the England team then, bearing in mind what we've said about their track record and things like that, where is the big threats for England in terms of how they can damage other teams? Who are their players that other teams will fear, do you think?
Well, obviously Harry Kane is the one that everybody talks about, but I think that Kane is your classic stick the ball in the net striker, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's a lot of creativity around him that allows him to do what he does, that maybe doesn't get credit. I think Phillips he was with Leeds. Is he still with Leeds, or has he moved on?
He is now a Man City player, although I think at this point has only made one appearance because of injuries.
Which is a shame.
if you believe what's being said, he should be fit for the World Cup. I'm not sure that that's going to be the case, but he was a revelation at Euro 2020. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was. And then you also have the midfield is producing some good talent there. So, but one that really sticks out for me and who actually doesn't get a lot of praise in the English press is Kieran Trippier.
Yep.
I think he's excellent. I mean, he's a complete fullback and can strike a good dead ball. He can get forward. He's excellent defensively. He is one that the debate is it going to be him or is it Luke Shaw for that fullback berth? I don't think it's even a contest. I think Trippier's twice the player Shaw will ever be, but that's Shaw plays for Man United, and that's one of the in vogue teams, so he might end up getting there ahead of Trippier, which I think is going to be very unfair if that happens.
Here's a question for you in terms of why Trippier might not make it, considering the high opinion that you have of him, and one that I share, to be honest.
Yeah.
What was his stint in Spain with Atletico Madrid a case of out of sight, out of mind for the England setup, or is that being a bit too simplistic about it, do you think?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because the same thing happened when, if you look back historically, when players like, for example, Mark Hateley went to Italy, Paul Elliott went to Italy, Des Walker went to Italy, David Platt went to Italy. Now, these were guys that would still play for England now and again, but they were not regulars like they had been when they were doing it week in, week out in the English First Division.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a certain myopia at the English FA that they, again, the media are partly to blame here, not the players, not the fans, nothing like that. It's the media. They play up this whole best league in the world thing for England.
Yeah.
It's the best marketed league in the world, but I don't think it's the best league in the world, right?
No.
But because they think it's the best league in the world, there's the assumption that any player that isn't playing in that league is inferior.
Yes. Which certainly isn't the case when you, if you take a little bit of time out to watch Bundesliga. I quite like watching from time to time. You see the quality of the players on display at the Champions League. Us as Celtic supporters don't need to be reminded of that quality, and it wasn't coming from English teams, that's for sure.
Well, except when they played Rangers, but that's another story.
I can never trust you. Never trust you.
I'm sorry. Had to go there.
So just looking at, obviously, as the reviews have gone on, we have been able to break down the groups and who people are going to be facing. Just so that we can do that in a little bit more detail, we'll bring up here exactly who the groups are. So we are looking at Group B at the moment. So that's England at the top there. They've got Iran. We'll cover Iran in one of the next reviews and whether they're even going to be at the World Cup, but we will see. Then the United States, and then obviously the fellow UK team, Wales. And looking at fixtures, let's just see if we can pull that up. It's going to be a tricky opener for them with, let me just see if I can find it. I really hate the way the website's got this laid out. It's like doing it day by day rather than doing like a full fixture tree, which just makes it an absolute nightmare to find the actual fixtures. So we've got Qatar v Ecuador on day one. We've got United States v Wales on day two, which means England open against Iran. So looking at that and looking at the potential banana skins that might be in the group there, are England going to struggle against any of their opponents, do you think, or is this their group for the taking? Just to put my point across, I always laugh at the fact that England harbour hopes of winning the tournament and then get very scared when they come up against Panama and Trinidad and Tobago in their group. and struggle to overcome them. If that happened again, then you'd have to say their chances of winning the tournament are kind of going to be slim, but maybe I'm jumping the gun there.
Like England are one of those teams. Like the problem is, you go to now. I like having a bet on the football, right?
Mhm.
But you go to a bookie in the UK. England are probably, I would guess, about 7 or 8 to 1, maybe second or third favourites to win the tournament. That's just ridiculous.
Mhm.
They should be about a 20 to 1 shot. And if they were about 20 to 1, I would actually be tempted to stick a wee fiver on them, because I think if things go their way, they have a chance. They do have a chance. But I don't think it's going to be at this World Cup. I think there are at least 4, 5, maybe 6 teams at this World Cup that I think are just better than England in every department. They will probably get quarterfinals. Probably good for the quarterfinals, because I think they're probably going to win this group, which would then give them an easier tie in the second round.
Yep.
So effectively, they're not going to play one of the major contenders until the last 8.
Okay.
So when that happens, I think as soon as they come up against a major contender, they'll fold like a pack of cards.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping. Not that I'm bitter in any way.
No.
Listen. I think if there wasn't the possibility that them winning it would mean we'd need to hear about it ad nauseum for the next 60 years, then I wouldn't be as bothered. But we all know that what we've had to live through up until now, and it would be twice as bad if we were actually alive when they did it.
Look, I don't feel bad about slagging the English. You know, I mean, some of my best friends are bigots.
Listen, folks. We've got Iran to deal with, which is a whole different kettle of fish on its own. But then we've got the United States and Wales, which is kind of a nice way to end the group, probably, and maybe a little bit more positive. So we will get on and do that, and we'll leave you with our thoughts on England. Don't forget to put your thoughts on England and any of the other nations that we've talked about in the comments below these videos. We really look forward to hearing from you. Although these shows aren't live, it doesn't mean you can't interact with us and let us know exactly what you think of how much pish we're talking, basically.
And if England do end up winning this World Cup, I just want to say I am really sorry to everybody in Scotland for tempting fate.
If England win that World Cup, I am moving to Japan.
If England win that World Cup, I'll pay for your flights, my friend. That is not going to happen.
If you've got a spare room until I can find digs, then that would be grand. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. Liam, thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time for our review of the rest of Group B.
See you then.
See you then.